This Kirblog topic was suggested by Alpha Zenarch. If you'd like to suggest future topics for videos like these, and if you want to hear them before they officially release, consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/Kirbifer. This is a brand new Kirblog about a little project that I made. And I'm joined by a raccoon who I was mean to with my shiny blade. I'm sorry. I had to call it back. I'm really sorry.
Wait, am I supposed to be on this?
No.
I thought, which one of us do you want?
I think he wants me.
No. I've had just about enough of you. I just had to reference the Tournament Fiasco because it was just too good not to. It was the rhyming scheme was calling out for it. You know.
Fine.
All right.
I've had enough of you too. I'm gonna go into your trash.
You know what? Valid. Enjoy. It's full and running on. Hey, hi everybody. Welcome. It's July flew by tremendously quickly, way faster than I expected, and it's already been about a month since, well, within the month, of course, but you know, it's been some time already that we released the third and final installment of the Terrain of Magical Expertise A2Z movie trilogy. I'm joined by Deven Mack today. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm that name.
Yes, and not Raccoon. He's a completely different entity.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, this was quite fitting. As you know, we've ended the first half of the year with this kind of fun project to commemorate what is 12 years of Tome, which is really hard for, me to believe. I don't know about you.
That's crazy. Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. It don't feel right.
Yeah, because I think we might have talked about this in some other videos before, but like it feels like a lifetime ago when we we went to LA. We were helping Kira Buckland move, and we were hanging out and around Thanksgiving. We were recording the second episode. I was writing stuff. I was refurbishing some things in those early days, and
we were all in that car, and I was singing the CeeLo Green song with Bosco.
Forget you.
And a lot of moves like Jagger, like every 5 minutes, was playing on the radio. Those are good times.
Indeed.
And here we are, with a 16-episode animated series and a full video game, and a whole lot of other really cool stuff, and a tremendously loyal, wonderful fan base that you and I have both gotten to know in our own ways. Yeah. And so I guess this topic is going to be covering just sort of the whole impetus, I guess, of the A2Z project.
Good word.
Yes, yeah, I know. I've grown a little bit in brain cellage since 2011. What can I say? So this was this kind of started actually back when we finished the series. Another fond memory, speaking of older stuff, was of course when we did the screening for the final episode at Anime Expo.
Wow.
Now, 2015. What is my math? That was, how many years ago was that?
8 years ago?
Yeah. We had all the cast out there, and we had a wonderful weekend together, and we screened the final episode on a Sunday morning to a room full of people who were so excited, and it was an amazing experience.
That was really special.
It really was. And then I put the show aside for a little bit, but there was a little thing I had. This was the beginning of the first kind of seed of this whole idea was I wrote a potential live action short that took place after the end of the series that ultimately became the live action ending segment of the third A2Z movie. Where I wanted to have IRL Kirbifer / Zeto speaking with Webmaster and Alpha, through some various phone calls, and just getting a little bit of closure, looking back, showing the regret and just the bigger picture of everything that had happened throughout the course of the series and the story and everything, and ending on this kind of cute, semi-somber but still uplifting note. And I sat on it for a while, and it was something that I had intended to film at some point, literally 2 houses ago. I've been living in LA for 9 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, in my old Sherman Oaks place, which you've seen, of course, with the big loft.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of never got around to it. My focus was put onto other things at the time, but it was always something that I held on to. And then something that I had explained to a few people, and I forgot the example I gave to you when I talked about this, but so as I'm sure a lot of fans of anime know, that there are some series that have happened either one way or the other, where say it's a series first, like a 26 episode series, and they will later the studio will take the episode footage and sort of remix it into movies with additional scenes, or in cases like for a recent one, the Berserk Memorial Edition, which was 3 movies, and they split them into episodes. That is a trend that happens occasionally with anime shows, and it was something that I'd thought about that was kind of inspired by the fact that a lot of fans were going back and rewatching the show in general. And trends with YouTube changed with these, big, multi-hour video essays and things. And so it kind of hit me, okay, what if I took the episodes that we did and I tried that and I mixed them into a trilogy of films? And of course, that would be a perfect opportunity to expand upon some things and add new material and, etc. And so that was the next step. And then what I had decided in the last few years when I had gone through with it, and this is insane because, of course, last year for the 11th anniversary, we had the Hard Reset prologue, which, of course, is a project that, mostly you, but you and I, to a certain extent, have been, kind of toying with since the end of the series. And
right. And Ty belongs in that
absolutely, yes,
as well.
absolutely. Ty, shout out to Ty W. Toy Drill, who's done some fantastic art for lots of Tome stuff over the years. I foolishly thought at one point, oh, it won't be that difficult. I'll get all 3 of the movies done before the year is up, before 2022 is up. Oh, what a fool I was when I suddenly realized, oh no, I'm wanting to add a lot more new stuff than I initially thought. And it's going to be a little bit more complicated than I thought. And the idea of adding maybe some additional other live action sequences and things like that. So that was the next step in terms of following through with it. And in addition, I had come up with the concept of framing it in a different, and it's so interestingly timed. I just worked on, and I got to see a screening of the anime film The First Slam Dunk, which was fascinating because it's based on a Shonen Jump series, and it's the final arc of the original manga as a film, but it's told from not the perspective of the lead character, from one of the supporting characters. It's like from his viewpoint.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which was very, very fast. And the main character was, obviously still a major part, and he kind of ends up being the hero in the end. But it was from the perspective of this other character, and that, which was kind of a cool idea. And I had happened to come up with the angle of, okay, you know what? Because especially if I'm going to start the first of these 3 movies with putting episode 0 at the beginning, and therefore making it up front to the viewer of this iteration that Curver and Zeto are the same user. Having that be known up front, that led to the idea of, okay, then what if the different experience of this is that it is told from the perspective of Kerbifer and / Zeto's player, as opposed to the focus primarily, arguably being around Alpha more than anything in the series as it was. So that was sort of the guiding light of the project, and yeah, I once I got into it, I realized, okay, yeah, this is going to be a little more complicated than I thought it was going to be, but that's fine. I'll make it work, and so I got to recording. Had a few cast members, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. With recording some new things, started animating, feeling immediately very nostalgic for just animating in that kind of production pipeline again after so many years. It was, and of course we had we were able to make it happen in the first place because we had I think 300 or something new background characters that were donated by fans, new and old, and all spectrum of everybody that came from every orifice of the Tome fandom from and beyond that contributed. And which then presented the challenge of, I got to find places to fit all these. It was hilarious that I literally thought in the third and final one, maybe I doubt I'm going to get that many, if at all. So maybe I won't even open it up for people, or I don't know. Maybe there's not really many places for me to even include, shots of new background characters or anything. So maybe I'll just forego that. I don't know. And then I ended up getting like twice the amount that I even expected, which I'm still absolutely blown away by, and thank you all to those of you listening if you did in fact donate for one of them, or multiple in the cases of some people. So part of why I wanted Mac for you to be here is because you're actually pretty orchestrative. Is that the right word? Is that a good word? Is that proudly enough of anything?
Let's go with it.
Sure. You were an imperative factor into certain new scenes that got added. I had mostly put priority on stuff with Zeto and Kizuna behind the scenes, and I knew that I wanted to have some live action stuff of IRL Curb / Zeto to kind of, not have it be super jarring, have some stuff kind of scattered throughout. But there were certain characters that you had basically requested, like, hey, it'd be kind of cool to see a little bit more of this, at this point. So, and it's funny because it was, I was going to ask, do you remember? Because it was as soon as, or just earlier this year. It wasn't even that long ago.
Right. It's been one of those weird years that sometimes feels long and short at the same time. I don't know what to make of this year.
Yeah. But I remember the first, of the three movies, Artificial Interference was pretty cut and dry in terms of I wanted to focus on the early kind of activities of the debug org and the debuggers, excuse me, debug is TTA, haha. I wanted to kind of show what the individual sort of, I guess, moves on the chessboard were from, the leadership quality was, and showing some of the turmoil, behind what each of these choices were and how it was difficult. And then kind of end with justifying, like, why is Zeto kind of a cocky creepo in, when he shows up for the first time to the viewer in the series in episode 5, which it's funny, I recorded that stuff when we were together in that first visit a long time ago. At Sarah Williams, tarp booth that she had at the time. And so I wanted to kind of justify, okay, he's feeling a little screwed up in the head and doesn't really know how to deal with this. And so this is the way that he's dealing with it. And it's not good at all. So then we led to the second one, Two Lives, and really playing into that double life, not so healthy type of thing. And your suggestion was about, hey, would be kind of nice if there was maybe a little bit of an expansion upon the Kerbifer and Archie stuff. And especially coming off the heels of the Hard Reset, stuff that you had developed with Archie for a long time now. And I don't remember if that idea I was like, not combative, but like hesitant on or not. Because I know I was with the other one, which we'll get to that. But do you recall?
I don't think so much. I wasn't sure where exactly you were going to take it, but I don't recall there being much pushback on that as a concept.
Yeah, because I went in thinking that with each successive movie there was going to be less and less new stuff. And in the case of the third one, not until like the very, very end. But I just kept adding and adding and adding. And shout out to Link / VHS cassette / S4 Kuma, I think. They go by many names. But Link has been a longtime fan of the series and has contributed a lot of music to the RPG in particular. And they have a ton of really good music on their SoundCloud, some of which I had heard and asked, hey, this is really good. I would love to have this in this project. Would you be okay with that? And they agreed, which was wonderful. And there was a particular theme. Before I get to the how this ties into the Archie thing, but there was a theme called "The Smiling Devil." This very, very soft, cool kind of piano piece that you first hear in that new scene where Kizuna and Zeto have a big argument, and Curb goes off somewhere, and he has a little text conversation with Alpha that leads to them then doing one of our favorite episodes, the Fragged Quest, and that theme.
That is my single favorite episode.
Well, I mean, why wouldn't it be? But that theme I felt worked tremendously well, and so I asked if I could license it. And mixed in with that music, there was also I'm gonna pull up the name of it. It was a very groovy, fun kind of Sega Genesis-y.
Yes, that one's called Tet Comes Through.
Yes, Tet Comes Through. Tet Comes Through. Excuse me. Yes, that's correct. And I really liked it, and I felt, you know what, this would be fantastic for a little training montage kind of situation for Kirby, because I wanted to have. So this was the interesting thing. Kirb/Zeto ultimately does not treat Archie very well at all. At all. And Archie was a byproduct of, this almost like I hate to say what's the term? Rebound kind of, relationship, because it's not quite like that, but I mean in that sort of the spirit of that, of like, I'm feeling alone and isolated, and yeah, sure, whatever, you're giving me attention, so I'll accept it. But I don't care enough about you, and I'm, etc. And so we had this dynamic, and I remember you were actually very particular about maybe how some of the expressions would be executed in terms of.
I definitely really wanted it to be conveyed that no, I'm not your buddy. No, I do not like you.
Yeah, because that was an important, I didn't want it to be like, no, they were cool, and actually it's like, no, it's like, this is not a good, it's explaining more of like, okay, how they were even somewhat coordinated, to get as far as they did to the Gemini tournament before the untimely end that, a certain not bear caused. With a little rock bomb that was handed very inappropriately to somebody, not pointing any fingers, but
it definitely wasn't Raccoon.
No, it was Raccoon. It was Uncle Raccoon from TTA, of course.
Yes.
But yeah, that was fun to work on. I went with this angle of almost like a WarioWare micro games kind of compilation, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I loved doing the different sort of poses and the arrow shooting. Gave a little cameo to Pawn Eco, because we skipped over some of the shorts. Worth noting, actually, before I forget this, you can hang your hat on the fact that Raccoon's Modern Strife was the only of the 7 shorts that was included into the episode footage that I had, because it was basically made into required viewing. So.
I'm very grateful for that. Yes. As far as that sequence goes with Archie, definitely tonally it was a lot more kind of upbeat than I was expecting, but it's very cute. It's always really nice for me to just see Archie in any capacity, because he is actually my favorite Tome character, not Raccoon, and Raccoon wouldn't have a problem with that because he loves him too. It was really, really nice to see him on screen again. It was definitely coming across cuter in some ways than I expected, but at the end of the day, what I want people to take from that is, Archie may have trusted him, but he did not care about him. He was not good to him.
No, and the irony, that maybe I don't even know if people think about too much, but the irony of the fact that Rocky is the one. Okay, spoilers. Yes, Rockoon and Raccoon in 2011 are in fact the same person. I know, shocker.
Don't tell anyone.
The fact that Raccoon was the one that also kind of flippantly, bye, with the bomb, and then sometime much later, ends up being the one to come to his aid and become his friend. and puts forth that effort. And even also showing in that little extra sequence the fact that just like, even if Archie is not, because I've even noticed this about some people that play games competitively, even when you objectively kind of suck at a game, but you love it so much and it means so much to you that you keep on playing it and you keep on practicing no matter what.
Right.
Even literally when you're faced with like opposition and embarrassment and trolling and just like mean, unpleasant people and just bad things or whatever, like still you continue because it's you're not turned off by it. You know, that I think goes to show how dedicated, you know, even because the fact that he's still struggling even when he's training with rock and hard resets, like, but he doesn't,
Yeah.
he is not given up. And I think that's a testament to how good of a lad he is. So
I think so. It also kind of gives me the idea that he maybe doesn't have much else. It's the only thing he finds a bit of comfort in,
yeah,
but he doesn't give up, and I admire that about him.
absolutely, yeah.
And also before I forget, Link also did a little bit of a remix on
Yes.
Tet Comes Through
Yes,
with
that's
something
right.
that I requested, working in Archie's theme song that I composed. That's called the Legend of the Fable of Archie. It is completely original and not a blatant reference to any particular video game that's made by Nintendo. Not at all. Yeah, Link did an amazing job of working that in to the previous song that they composed, and it just goes together so well. I
Oh
really
yeah,
enjoyed that
so
remix.
so groovy and
Very kind of NBA Jam sort of style.
yeah.
Come on.
Because like honestly, yeah, I'm very particular. I'm more of a Super Nintendo sound font kind of, as you know.
Same here,
But
same.
but when the Genesis stuff gets it right, it's it's so like crunchy and satisfying and absolutely, yeah. So I'm glad I got to include that track, and for sure the remix was fantastic. So actually, it's funny too. On the note of the shorts, I did mention I did also try in terms of how I kind of melded the transitions between the different episodes and everything. Any opportunity that I had to throw in even the tiniest little bit of something extra in there, like for instance, after the Gemini tournament stuff. Expanding the now creditless sequence with the smooth jazz version of Battle On that I performed many years ago. That still holds up better. That I could sing better than that, but I'm like, okay, I don't hate this, which is saying something because I'm very critical of my singing.
Yeah.
But showing a little bit more of the fact that Game Crazed kind of knows what's up, or no, not kind of, very much knows what's up, and a little bit of that, hey, does Kirb/Zeto know that that's Softy? And, they have a little bit of this off-screen sort of, confiding in each other about certain things, perhaps. And then that leading into Zeto combining the blue glowy sort of absorption data from Astarov's weapon. Into his metal arm to then set up for what happens in episode 10 in place of Kizuna's sort of opening speech, because having an opening episode speech like from episode 10 in the middle of that wouldn't have made any sense. So things like that I tried to either or like in the case of the third one, seamlessly just kind of like having the episode sort of like go right into the next one. Maybe with not much between, but every opportunity I tried to do something kind of unique with it.
Absolutely.
And that was fun because that was also kind of I've been getting used to using Adobe Premiere a bit more in the last few years, just mostly basic things. This was the most, and I had certainly help, which I'll get to talking about Corey in a little while, but this was the most kind of advanced editing that I had done for any project on my own. I had previously always gotten help from other people with video editing stuff. And I was really happy with how it came out. Premiere was often not nice to me, especially during the third one. Like, oh, mama. But I, did my best with it, and it cooperated ultimately, thankfully.
Yeah, you did well.
So, yeah, and then I'm trying to think of before, because I don't want to skip over anything. I feel like there's going to be some minor detail that I'm going to miss, but
I'm remembering another transition actually. Pierce
Sure.
Hackard did that little jingle for right before the new Archie.
Oh yes, that's
starts.
right. That's right.
Dun,
Yeah.
da-da, also
Dun.
working in that same theme
Of
song.
course, of course. I think I originally just had like a stock. The early seasons of Pokemon used it a lot. It was a stock sort of ba-ba. I had that boom, and then it just cuts off from that classic Japanese kind of like tapping the wood, like the doom kind of thing, because I love that noise. I did also throw that there were little subtle things. Okay, actually, yeah, this is what we're talking about. For the third one, a lot of people know one of the bigger changes was the fact that I had literally gone in to every episode, every scene, every shot, and painstakingly replaced all of the colors for the lead characters and anybody else with a blindingly bright color scheme with a not that color scheme, which I think was to great success in my own opinion. And that was certainly
It was a triumph.
yeah, that was certainly a big task. There were other little things that I had done, filling in little gaps in paint fills that I had missed over the years, little minor animation.
Raccoon a main character since he got that.
I mean, he did, and so did Skate, so did Archie. Yeah, certainly, there's something to that, certainly. Oh, Neo Mutant as well, although he's a big butthead, but
Yuck.
He got his. It's fine. He got decapitated.
He did
on the internet. There were little things like that I went in and things that you might not necessarily even notice, but they were just minor fixes that I wanted to do for the sake of just improving the footage as much as I could. And a lot of that also played into the editing process and just kind of tying everything together as best as I could. There was something else. I was losing track of what I was doing with that, but I wanted to add as much stuff that I felt would be satisfying. I wanted this new sort of take on everything to be satisfying in a slightly new and refreshing kind of way, but also just like reminding people, hopefully what made it good in the first place. Of which, the original episode footage mostly does on its own. I remember now, one of the other little things during the Gemini tournament in the second one, every time a match was about to start, I had the for the double drum, because it's very Tenkaichi Budokai, kind of situation. I would say of the three, without question, the big one that I was the most enthused about, and actually this is another thing, and this, Matt, because we talked about this quite a long time ago. Maybe we can even reveal a little bit about this here. So many years ago, we finished the first season with episode 10 with the Demon Alpha Demon Zeta fight, and then we took a break for a little while. Then eventually came back and I did the GoFundMe campaign for the second season. And then I moved to LA at that time. Prior to that, a thing we had discussed as a possibility instead of doing a second season was doing a film. I don't know if you remember this very well, but
no, not particularly.
Yeah, it was. Do you recall? Well, and if not, then maybe I'm either refreshing your memory or telling you for the first time. It was meant to be pretty much all of what everybody knows as the season 2 material, but as a movie. I actually remember one of the opening scenes was going to be our heroes fighting against Rockoon and Skate still as a duo. And making trouble and them kind of fight just as sort of like here's the characters, and sort of like they're kind of like at the beginning of the Pokemon movies where Ash would just be like having a battle with somebody. It was kind of meant to be like an equivalent.
I don't remember this at all.
Yeah, and it was also back, you might remember this, when there was an idea I had about having Raccoon be part of the sort of security team of the hacker headquarters.
I do remember that, and him teaming up with Oddball, which thank goodness did.
Yes, and of course that was that was a possible sort of like, hey, maybe I could carry this over a little bit from TTA, where the final part of the second season of that show of that version of the series was All of the debug org hackers were all kind of like this boss gauntlet for each of our heroes to fight against, and that kind of thing.
Right.
And ultimately ended up not doing that. I'm very glad that we went with the story that you and I had developed with him as this kind of secondary thing.
Hmm.
But that was an idea back then, and there was also this alternative character that I had that would have been Ruby Rules in disguise. That would have taken away the whole angle with Neo Mutant being involved with sort of the true crime that was happening behind the scenes with trying to take a hold of Softy and everything.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that said, doing the second season as a movie, taking those 5 episodes, 11 through, was it 5? It was 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, yeah, math, 5 episodes. We combined those into one, and it worked remarkably well, and with a whole bunch of stuff that I wasn't going to have in the old like movie version that I was conceiving at in like I guess 2011 2014, I think that would have been.
Hmm.
So I was very happy, probably more than any of them, with the third one. Um, and even beyond the color updates and seeing some of my favorite moments, we had quite a bit of new stuff that ended up being very, very cool. So at this point, I want to give a tremendous shout out and a tremendous thanks to the lovely and talented Corey Holland, who is a good friend of ours, a longtime friend of ours,
Oh,
both
yes.
of ours, since well, you've known him longer than I have. I think I met him in 2000, maybe 9.
I've known him since 2008, I
Okay,
believe.
yeah, and he lives out here. He is the voice of Justin. You know, everyone's favorite character, Justin. um, and
He made it his own, and he made it very memorable.
he sure did. My God, yeah, he was. Yeah, for his 10 lines of dialogue, he was damn it. I think he literally had more lines than T Bones did, which is really sad, and I'm so sorry, T Bones and to Andrew Dennis. Um, Nonetheless, yeah, he is a film major and a great filmmaker as well. Done lots of video editing and filmography and stuff, and he's an on camera actor and a voice actor as well, of course. And he was a tremendous champ and basically came over and helped me film a whole bunch. In addition to that original idea that I had for an expanded live action ending with Zeto talking to some people, over some calls and things, but all this other extra stuff that we had, including me waking up from my bed with the Silva Gunner Tome remix as my ringtone. The transition between episodes 14 and 15, where I wake up and switch accounts from Kerbifer to Zeto, which includes the jump over my couch that you seemed so fascinated and
Oh
impressed with.
yes, the
Yeah,
the epic couch jump maneuver. Dun dun
yeah,
dun 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 dun
yeah.
dun. Can never forget that.
I was so befuddled by how like much you liked that. It
I
was-
thought it was absolutely hilarious.
wow,
Is the
good.
coolest physically active thing I think I've ever
Seeing
seen you
me do,
do.
yeah, my life, yeah, I was more active when I was a child. I ran a lot. Yeah, that was and the whole time, admittedly, I thought I looked ridiculous. In all of the this is regards to all the live action stuff. I have not done live action acting in years, like probably not since maybe high school, like early high school, I think.
Oh
So
wow.
it was a muscle I hadn't really. I mean, I'd done like live, stuff on camera, but not like acting on camera in a very, very long time. So not that it was uncomfortable, but it was just that it was because I felt confident enough to do it. And I, had a lot of aid in terms of remembering lines and having cue cards and all this kind of thing. But yeah, the whole time I'm just like, oh god, I'm so larger than life and animated, and I don't know if it's like even humanly possible to take anything that I'm doing seriously, even when I'm being sincere. But and actually, and this ties into something once again you can hang your head on. There was one scene live action that Corey did not help me film because I did it myself on my phone.
Oh.
And that was an additional scene that was thanks to your suggestion of, hey, It'd be kind of nice if there was a little something extra for Flame Girl so that Anna Kingsley could come back and play her again for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that. That was one that I do remember being a little opposed to, only because, like, I don't even know where to put something. I have no idea, like, where to even include something extra for Flame Girl specifically that would make sense. After you had suggested that. And then I think literally either later that night or maybe the day after, there was a moment, because, of course, as people have noticed from those little sort of like that little calendar transition, the third movie / the second season takes place over the course of a full week, basically. And there was a moment in the middle of episode 11 where there was, but as it was transitioning to the next day, I felt, okay, what if Kirb wanted to check in on Flamey to show that he has, in the time that has passed since, the earlier episodes / earlier movies, that Kirb is trying to make an effort to be a better friend to Flamey because he knows that he was not kind to her before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so showing an effort of like, hey, just wanted to check up on you, make sure that you're doing okay, especially because the stress of, this hacker stuff that he is directly responsible for, well, not in the case of Oddball, but, in previously for happening. And, and also his way of kind of subtly being like, I can't reveal the truth to you, or rather I'm choosing not to, but more accurately, I'm choosing not to trust you with the truth, but this is my way of trying to warn you to please stay out of this whole thing that's happening so that you don't get hurt. And because she is too strong of a person and too set in her wanting to set things right, because she can trust others, that she does not back down from wanting to do what she's doing. And so, of course, when Neo Mutant, brings that invite that Zeto thinks is part of the plan, so, it's just this whole wrench of like, man, everybody trusted the wrong people except for our heroes. So, yeah, and it ended up, I think, working remarkably well, and especially to set up, what would happen in the recycled episode footage to follow. So, and it was really, and huge shout out to her. It was wonderful to work with Anna again.
She was fantastic.
Yeah,
she sounded great.
Yeah, she had like a day hadn't passed, and you know what? Just this is kind of a side note, but let's talk about that for a second, because Anna is something. Anna is someone very. The discovery of Anna is something that is very kind of special to you and I, because that was when you and I were beginning to become good friends, and I was in the early days of conceptualizing, what if I do this Tome thing either as a game or as a web series or something? And you were always kind of on the hunt on places like the Newgrounds audio portal, which was not always the most common place to find, up and coming voice talent that now, of which are many people that are doing extremely well for themselves. And Anna was one of them. Anna was so, because it was she was on Newgrounds when you found her, I think. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about that, because that also ties in, of course, when she was cast in Dust, kind of around that same time, or about a year later or so.
Wow. Again, my memory is very, very hazy, but yeah, I was just generally trying to find new talents, people that I could audition for Dust and Lizzie and Theo, and I heard her voice demo on here, and I'm like, dang, she's good. I don't know anybody who sounds like this. She just has this ultimate kind of girl next door, like everyday kind of voice that I don't hear a lot of. She's not trying to do like super anime stuff or super over the top characters. She just sounds like just a nice person. And I ended up casting her as Haley the blacksmith in Dust, and I was like, yo, Chris, you got to hear this person. And then she was cast as Flame Girl. In both cases, she was going up against people who had way more experience than she had.
Yes,
I don't
that's
know
right.
if she'd ever voiced an online project before at all.
Yeah,
But
it
lo and
was
behold, she
incredible.
was kicking
Yeah,
butt.
because there were quite a few other women that I had considered for the part of Flame Girl. If those of you who know the Did You Know voice acting video that I did a number of years ago know that a couple of them were actually people that went on to voice other characters in the show. But even before that, there were some other actors that I'd forgotten about from like years ago that I'd considered, and then Anna just kind of came in and dominated, and I remember getting feedback from you included and quite a few other people. I was caught between two or three of them, and Anna got the most votes, and she was a pleasure to work with. So yeah, having her back in again was wonderful, and she was so excited to get to play in that character's to go in Flamey's shoes again, and so that was awesome, and actually everybody, not to disparage, because also Imogen Fox and Kyle Bear as well. I was very, very grateful that I got to have them record some new material, and even a couple little guests that we had as some additional characters that were also some last minute ideas. So for the third one, I had decided a little bit later on that I wanted to. I didn't want to cold open on the Bailey Smith Justin gag because I felt that with the angle I was going with A2Z, that wouldn't have really made any sense. So I knew I wanted to start off with something relating to Zeto. And so I came up with, of course, because Two Lives had a speech by Kizuna, which also had a little bit of a nod to the intro to the game with it's the year 2020. Everyone on Earth is stuck inside, eyes glued to their screen. We had some references to, of course, the real life pandemic happening, which was not planned. It just kind of happened to work out with how the plot was going, so I included some notation to that. But with the opening to the third one, I wanted to have a little bit of just a look into Zeto's mind of, I don't know what I'm doing, and I feel horrible all the time, and I'm trying to do the right thing, and I'm failing miserable at it, and I'm continually lucky that despite that, I seem to have a lot of good things in my life, and we're at kind of a place of peace at the moment, but my work isn't done, and I'm just so tired and still don't know exactly what I'm doing, even when I try to give off the impression that I do. And so I thought, much like how Oddball was a rogue hacker that, perhaps might have been inspired by some of the hackers that Zeto was responsible for earlier on. Torture, who, those of you who don't know this, maybe you do if you're a really, really, really hardcore fan, there was intended to be an additional episode that took place between what you guys know as 12 and 13, shortly after the Net Kings, the Net King battles, and before they get approached by Neo Mutant to infiltrate the Debug headquarters. There was supposed to be an episode where instead of the drain edge breaking open and the egg coming out immediately, they would have realized that it was there, and actually Torment, who of course we cycled into being just sort of like a creepy stalker character in episode 10. We moved him a little earlier and made him into not hacker. Torment and Torture, who is Torben from TTA, of course, were intended to be a couple more hackers that would have been hired by Zeto and Kizuna to try and retrieve that. We ended up cutting that because when I was conceptualizing the season 2 episodes, I wanted to trim the fat as much as possible, so we ended up not including that as a subplot after all. So okay. Torment got repurposed to the episode 10 kind of stalker role, and so Torture I decided to make into another sort of rogue, unaffiliated with the debuggers.org faction of just somebody going around and wreaking havoc, much like some other ones had before. And Oddball would come shortly after him. So Zeto showing up and trying to prove against the TV trope of the mods are useless, or rather the police are useless, of right. him acting as an administrator properly and taking care of someone. It's like, well, this isn't normally allowed. I allow it when it's, part of this plan that I'm trying to do for the quote unquote greater good, but you're not part of that. So I'm going to, step in and try to do my job and convince myself that I'm actually doing something good for everybody. And that played in very nicely. And Torture was voiced by one of your students who
That's right, Kai
became your student, if I'm not mistaken, because he was a big fan of Tome.
That is definitely an influence for sure.
Yeah. Kai is, of course, and he's gone on to work on many other projects. You might know him as Leon in Pokemon Twilight Wings, the YouTube web series, and a few other anime projects and video games and things. And yeah, I met him when he was a young teenager. I actually lectured at his, I think his high school, as a guest speaker many years ago. And it's funny. I even remembered. Kai, if you hear this, I'm just rising you a little bit on this. He was like. He was doing an impression of Raccoon a little bit, and I was like, haha, yeah, don't quit your day job, kid. That was actually really good. And you want to talk a little bit about your experiences with training, Kai?
There's nothing specifically that's coming to mind for me off the bat, but there are definitely moments when he would do either an impression of Rocky or an impression of me, and I was like, I kind of hate how good that is.
I think it's funny because even Torture's one line in that little background sequence was just I wanted him to be. The instruction was just he's laughing hysterically, enjoying himself, and wreaking havoc. And then he's surprised by Zeto, one of the winners of the Gemini tournament, showed up, and he's about to, take me to town. Hey, wait, please don't do it, kind of thing. And and it's funny because Torture, or rather Torben in TTA was this very cold, militaristic, like Paul Dobson type, sort of character, like really, only in it for the money and whatever. And then Kai just took him in this complete opposite direction of just high pitched fun, whacking around. And I'm like, all right, sure. Maybe
enjoy that.
Maybe this version of him and Raccoon would have gotten along. Perhaps, I have no idea.
I think if he'd met an earlier era,
and under different circumstances, perhaps, yeah. That was something I was always bummed, is that there was never like a council of bad guys talking to each other in a Skype call or something, and or in the headquarters somewhere, all dark and yes, now we must do this. Yes, indeed, I'll get him. We never got to do that. So
more that I think about it, I think he is what Skate was trying to be.
Absolutely, yeah. Another one, and when I say last second, I mean this was literally within probably a week before the third movie came out.
Wow.
As I had mentioned earlier, thanks to the incredibly just gracious, massively unexpected amount of fans that donated for background characters to appear in some of the new scenes in this project, I didn't have as much space as I thought, so I needed to create more space to allow, opportunities for background characters to be showcased, and give everybody enough screen time equally to enjoy that. So in the episode 13 footage, right before the clock strikes midnight, and all the other players other than our heroes plus Neo Mutant are kicked out, I decided to add a scene with a moderator character giving a full-on speech of, listen, you have 60 seconds left. If you don't log out, I'm logging you out myself, and if you resist, I'm going to ban you. I'm being serious here. And so this character, Moshin, who is based very loosely on one of the ranks of Sanctuary from the third season of TTA, there's a character named DKS. Moshin was a character that was sort of on the drawing board for a game that would have tied in with the 2011 series, something that I conceptualized a long time ago. It was actually also where the garbage canon first kind of got birthed, and eventually years later got used in the Tome RPG. Thank God. Good ideas never die; they just get reincarnated into something else. I used that character, and kind of, since Chase Ace was also based on another one of the ranks of Sanctuary from TTA, which was Paper Ace Chase, based on one of the gentlemen from the Rockman Network, an old fan site that I went to many years ago. I took one of those, made them another moderator character, had them surrounded by the Armora sort of generic moderator models and everything, and it was just another quick crowd shot for me to throw in, a whole bunch more characters and stuff. So that worked out nicely. That was like, okay, now I'm really scrambling. I got to figure out something like now to make this work, and thankfully it went okay. So that was fine, but yeah. So I think we're now at the point where we can talk about the new ending.
Sure,
So
let's go.
so this was something that I had been thinking about for quite a while, and since the beginning of the project, it was intended that it was going to end with that new live action ending sequence. There was not going to be the animated extension afterward. So, before we talk about that and kind of the process of that, you brought up something when I first approached you about joining in on this Kirblog. You had brought up something that you asked about. Hey, like, is it okay for me to talk about my criticisms of something? And it had to do with the portrayal, not like my acting specifically, but the portrayal in terms of the story of
Right.
Zeto slash Kerberfer. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that because we talked about it off screen before, and I actually thought it was really interesting. So
Yeah, I would say some of what was tricky for me is like there's this back and forth between sometimes we see Zeto and it's like he is acting like a dang sociopath doing his whole Batman thing. And being super super secretive when he doesn't really need to be, putting his friends in danger, but at the same time we kind of see him framed as this sympathetic figure at the same time. So for me it was kind of a little tricky at certain points, like how am I supposed to feel about this guy?
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't even think of this when we talked about it before, but I think what might have been a little bit of an unconscious influence on it was Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul,
Right.
because it's a show about, for the most part, a bunch of sociopaths and terrible people on an objective level, but there are ways that you find some sort of like, I'm still rooting for them. I still care about them, and I'm still interested to see what happens with them. They're horrible on like the grand scheme of the world. They're horrible, and they're putting their friends and family in those cases through hell. Uh, but I don't not care about what's going on with them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was in terms of like trying to execute it that way. The
Right.
other thing was there's been a lot of debate, and I think that this is I don't look at this as like something frustrating. I think that it's fascinating because I think it's sometimes it's an aspect to any media is a talking point. I've seen different people feel differently about things in the finale, such as what happened with Kizuna.
Mm-hmm.
Both her decision to, after everything, point her gun at Softy, as well as Zeto's decision to, stop her from doing that. I've seen all sorts of different opinions about, who was quote unquote right and quote unquote justified in just that one moment, where she's, finally dumping her true, feelings unabashedly to Softy because she's like, well, you can tell what I'm thinking anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna say it, whatever. Thinking no one else is listening, perhaps. And as well as maybe even more controversial, and especially with some of the stuff that's going on in the world right now, without getting too much into that, whether Ruby was right and whether Ruby was screwed up for doing what he wanted to do, or if he was justified, and if all the Net Kings were stupid. Um, I actually think that there is a lot of value to that because not that I don't want things to be satisfying solidly, but I think that also having it last and it's something that people talk about and think about in different ways is really valid. And I think that that view of not being fully forgiving to Curb slash Zeto after everything, of like, no matter how sympathetically he can appear and how regretfully he does feel, and it shows, it doesn't change the fact that like he is screw up after screw up after screw up after screw up, with which I personally identify.
I wanted to punch him the whole time, bro.
Yeah. So yeah. And much like with me. So, but we won't go there. Yeah, no. So I think that is valid, and I'm even curious if there were other people, because okay, actually here's something I didn't think about this. So I don't remember if you've seen like absolutely every thing of this in the RPG, but I made the RPG version of Seto absolutely, in my eyes, unredeemable, like without question. He's horrible, right? But there's this weird study of there's characters in anything, not even just the Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad examples, but characters that are awful and do awful, horrible things, sometimes even things that are worse than Walter White or Saul Goodman. And people still love and adore them and stand them and are like, oh, my poor baby, let me fix you. Oh, you're my comfort character, things like that. Which to me, I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't.
Right.
But it's fascinating to me, and that was even part of what motivated making Zeto, or RPG Zeto, as horrible as he was, because I'm like, there's still going to be people that would be like, oh, yeah, he's my favorite, like completely unironically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, or even, I mean, if I want to go completely unsettled, throwing all this to the wind, I mean, Vegeta. Vegeta was a murdering psychopath.
Oh, yeah.
And genocided countless people, I mean, long before he even got to know the other main characters of Dragon Ball. Everybody loves Vegeta. Vegeta is redeemed, and just sort of it's overlooked that he was a murdering psychopath for his first steps on planet Earth. Yeah, and there's argument to be made there. I think it's a good argument, So on that same note, like when you were seeing the expanded ending, was it difficult to care about how he was coming off?
I feel like it was executed pretty well, at least with the core of it. I feel like it definitely was a bit overwritten, but when you get to the core of what was going on with him, he understood, hey, I've really, really messed things up, and I wasn't doing what I should have done. And the fact that he's able to admit that, I feel like there's a lot of value in that. Going back a little further,
sure,
I feel like more could have been done previously to frame it in a sense that, hey, there's something really off about what this guy is doing. Because with Walter White stuff, the way it was presented, it pulled no punches in saying like, this is messed up, he's messed up. We didn't really get those moments of him being like, this is why I'm a good person, this is why I'm doing the right thing. It was always presented as very twisted. So I think a little bit more of that would have helped previously to build the resentment to Kirblog, to Zeto. But again, I think in the end, I think it was all executed well at its core. And a lot of stuff was discussed and brought up that needed to be brought up with him.
Yeah, it is definitely... There were certainly things with other parts. I mean, okay, this is a little off topic, but I do wish there was an easier way that I could have redone. Say, for example, the big conversation between our heroes during episode 13, but right before Neo Mutant shows up, because it's mostly them recounting stuff that the audience already knows, but it was meant to show like they're figuring it out, like they're now coming to conclusions of things that the audience has known already. But they have to now learn it so that they can be on the same page, and then Neo Mutant turns the next page of stuff that he is showing them that they need to know, except withholding certain things, certainly.
Right.
That's one thing that because I even remember when we did episode 13 back then, I was like, oh, this is way too long, but like all of it is too necessary. That's something also, and this is another topic in and of itself too, because I do agree that the live action ending is overwritten, and there's parts of the current draft of my next project, which is Balancing Act, that are also overwritten, and it's something that I'm just like, I struggle with this and need help with revisions. And in that case, because this, I did everything on my own in terms of that stuff. But with this other project, I want to, get a lot more insight from people who are fellow professionals in that field. Nonetheless, but I agree. I think they're valid criticisms. I think that they're valid thought processes about, what does connect and what doesn't. Because even, one of the big things I tried to emphasize in that scene too is the fact that, like, he's so lucky that the people involved, and as the implication was, maybe with the exception of Kizuna because they hadn't been talking for a bit, the people involved all forgave him, and how, like, not unrealistic, because it's not that people have done that before, but it's a very, very, like, lucky, fortunate circumstance that he's in, to the point where he literally doesn't even know how to process it.
Right.
Which justified the, like, I literally got to spend time with these people in person, and the whole time I thought, like, I can't believe this is happening. This logically doesn't make any sense. You should all hate me, Like, I really wanted to emphasize that, like, I didn't want it to be purely, like, this fairy tale ending, and, like, absolutely everything is perfect. But that leads into the decision of wanting to add the animated sequence after, because my intention from the beginning of the A2Z project, which was, like, probably partway through last year, it was going to end with that live action sequence, and specifically with, he hesitates and then he calls Kizuna, she picks up the phone, and he's like, "Can we talk?" And it would have stopped right there. I think that by the time that I got through the second of the three movies, something had hit me in how that wasn't going to be satisfying enough for people. And it would not have been satisfying enough for me. Because I wanted to find a way to top the original ending that we had when we finished the series.
Right.
And that wouldn't have been enough. So I decided to come up with some ideas. And ultimately I felt, you know what? I am going to... sorry, hold on. Before I get to that, sorry, I should mention, because I did talk about Corey before. Corey was instrumental in direction and staging and editing the live action sequence. He was incredibly patient and cooperative and collaborative with all the little minor tweaks and edits and things that I asked for. He did a spectacular job with the camera work and edit and everything. Link also scored an arrangement of The Smiling Devil as well as Survive the Drama, which was Zeto's theme, for the live action sequence, which was also fantastic. I don't know if they might put it up online somewhere at some point, but a huge shout out to both of them.
Oh yeah.
And also, fun fact, what am I supposed to do, John? That line, I was actually crying.
Oh.
I think about maybe 5 or 6 different takes of just that one shot where I'm, like, breathing. I'm listening to Kyle Beara's webmaster going, like, it's not going to do anything, anymore. And then he goes, what am I supposed to do, John? Here's a secret revealed, folks. In order to get myself to cry for that scene, I stopped, went upstairs, played the I Need a Hero Detective Pikachu trailer, with Mewtwo coming out at the end. And for some reason, to this day, I don't understand why, but that trailer makes me tear up. So I literally I did a couple takes, And then I was like, hold. I went upstairs, watched that, came downstairs with tears in my eyes, did a couple more takes, and then we got one.
Is that one of your favorite movies ever?
No, it isn't. I really enjoy it. I thought it was great. I was very happy that it was as good as it was. I don't know what it is about the emotional significance of that trailer specifically that makes that happen. I don't know. I'm really, really not sure why, but I remembered specifically because I experimented with. I know that I'm going to have to cry on cue for this part, but I have to have something that will be my triggering point for that, and that was it. And it was so
Wow.
bizarre, but it worked. So
Okay.
yeah. So a little fun fact with that, but nonetheless, yeah. So the animated ending sequence. I had decided to do a music video using most of the footage of the AVZ short that I had done for, I think it was the 5th year anniversary of the show, with just Alpha and Zeto having a quick, little battle and everything. I had come up with that, and somewhere along the way, I was going back and listening to a bunch of music by Skyrocket of Rocket Ship Resort. Those of you who remember the episodes, Sky was the original artist for the song Starlight Speedway, which was performed basically by Alpha and Flamey as the ending credits song of episode 7. And I thought that it would be appropriate to have another song by that same artist as sort of a bookend. So I was able to get in touch with Sky, and I asked if I could license that song. And we debated either just using the original, Sky doing an arrangement, like re-singing it, which they actually had tooled around with a little bit, and then I asked, "Hey, would you be okay with if I just went ahead and did a cover of it myself?" Ultimately, they were cool with that. I had help with the instrumental from NTH of Silva Gunner, Jeff Vicente, who engineered and did backing vocals for it and helped mix everything together.
I didn't know he did vocals too.
Yes, yeah, he did backing vocals
Wow.
for it, yeah, which he was fantastic on. And I wanted basically it's very Sega Genesis-y sounding, and I wanted kind of like a Super Nintendo version of it, more or less. And yeah, I loved how it turned out. I am mostly okay with my singing on it. I think it's fine. So
I think you did well.
and I felt that it worked really, really well for what I wanted to go for. And expanding upon after where that short ends, with Alpha winning with the front kick, of course, seriously, unbelievable. Uh, I had come up with those new, as I call them, and same thing with the Raccoon and Archie versions of themselves, uh, the post-series designs, as I like to classify them as.
Hmm.
I had come up with some for Flame Girl, Nylok, Kizuna, and Softy, with a new player character that was kind of a combination of, well, they were all kind of combinations of different elements. Of course, Flamey was sort of the best of all worlds, of all different versions of her design, a little bit harkening back to the early TTA stuff, that people seem to respond to, like that's the best look for her.
Right.
As well as Nylok leaning a little bit into the RPG design with his armor and everything. Kizuna going back to the roots of actually it being kind of inspired by some of the player characters, the human race characters from some of the various Final Fantasy games, was sort of where she started off from, as well as a little bit, I forget the name of the cat people race from Final Fantasy, but sort of in reference to that too. And then Softy got kind of a combination of Game Crazed and Softy into a Game Soft for that design, and it was very cute. And I storyboarded and roughed out that whole kind of sequence at the end and everything. And getting to work on it and do everything with it was so rewarding, and it was still making me emotional every time I would look at it. And then by the time that I got the song
Oh,
completed, and I showed the not the whole movie front to back. Actually, no, I showed the whole movie front to back to Kieran, and Affy and Grant from Good Vibes Gaming, and was it Good Vibes? No, hold on. Is it Good Vibes? Hold on, I might have gotten that wrong. Give me 1 second. And yeah, we watched it all together. And Good Times Gaming, excuse me, sorry about that. We watched that all together, and then I showed the new sequences to Toxic Soul 77 and Germ and Courtney, our little Discord group. We watched the new sequences, and by the very end, like, yeah, they were really liking it as well. They got a lot of emotional response, and then I remember when we had the premiere on, literally only a couple weeks ago now, on YouTube, and we were both in the chat, and I was crying at the end, just seeing it resonate with everybody, and seeing it get an emotional response, and seeing that people were satisfied with where everybody wound up, even if on some level it was somewhat unbelievable or somewhat fairy tale in the fact that like everybody's okay and everybody's mostly happy. I think that ultimately it was a good note to end things on.
I agree.
And I'm glad that everybody liked it as much as they did. And I'm happy that I liked it as much as I did. Because, you can have various complicated feelings about your own work. Sometimes it's interesting. But I feel happy with where this universe and where these characters are. I think that this is a good kind of like, okay, it's over, even more so than where we left off when we finished the series back then. And I didn't think that would be an easy task to pull off, but I managed to. And I did that because I had your help, Mac, and the help of everybody involved, and the help of all the people who supported the project, and the help of all the fans for being able to do it in the first place. So I'm really grateful that everybody enjoyed A2Z. I have it all in a playlist now at the top of the series playlist. If people want to ever go back and rewatch the show again, I would say that this is the definitive way to watch it. And it's all nicely compacted together into these videos for you. I've been thinking about maybe for the anniversary day on November 11th, maybe having like all 3 movies in a row sort of marathon thing, just for fun.
Okay.
But yeah, Mac, thank you for joining me on this as well. I really appreciate it.
That's my pleasure.
Any other last few words you want to share with anybody out there?
Sure. I mean, it should be clear that Tome is and always will be very special to me. Raccoon kind of came into my life at a point where I really needed him, and I did not know that.
Neither did I. I didn't know that I needed him to be the real star of the show in the end.
But no, he's still with me and always probably will be with me. It's hard to imagine him not being a part of my life in some capacity. So I'm really grateful that you've given me the creative freedom to tell the stories that I've been able to tell, and hopefully will continue to tell in the future. So for those of you out there who are wondering, there's still very much, I think, left to explore with him and Archie and their relationship.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, looking back on, the 4 years that we spent doing the episodes back then, just seeing the old footage and remembering like kind of where we were at with our lives and how we were developing everything, from 2011 to 2015. It was a great experience getting to do that with you and with everybody on the crew at that time. And yeah, for sure. I certainly hope that we'll be able to see him and maybe some other characters from that continuity again if Hard Reset does carry on. And in the meantime, I hope for everybody else, if this is the end of like the story of what later became in the RPG the Dandy Alliance. I know they're not called that, the gang. But I hope that their story was concluded satisfyingly enough for everyone, in a new and fresh kind of way that maybe you didn't expect, in this incarnation. And Yeah, so we're moving on to other exciting things that we have in our future. I've I've got all this Mario RPG stuff that kind of dropped in my lap unexpectedly. Perhaps maybe something that may or may not involve perhaps both of us. We'll see.
Perhaps.
Don't know yet. And
Perhaps.
and balancing act, something that I'm more excited about than anything I've ever done. That hopefully I'm going to be able to spend some time on very soon. And by the way, just before I forget this, just because it's very relevant, and I don't know, maybe even the next part of it will come out the day that this comes out. But shout out to Brent Miller. Mac went to visit Vancouver recently and did an interview on his channel a little while ago. And
That's right.
literally
Mr. Saiyan Ninjago.
yes, indeed, and like from the beginning gave like an immediate shout out and kudos about Raccoon and Tome, which was so gracious, and the fact that Brent remembered me and gave me a shout out too, that made me very happy. So I appreciate you guys, and go check that out.
I don't know if it was from the beginning, but it might have been edited to look that way.
Oh, okay, yeah, it might have been early on. Yeah,
Either way,
yeah, it was
there.
early on, so for sure. Do you want to? I know same thing, but do you want to plug anything you got going on? I know you've been streaming a lot. You were streaming earlier tonight before we recorded this, and it was a lot of fun building some Lego.
Sure. If people want to check that out on Twitch, I am Deven and Raccoon. That is Deven and Rockoon. And yes, I stream on Sundays. Been to 2 Sundays. I do a Lego related thing, sometimes Ninjago, and that's whether it's play a Lego game or build a Lego thing. And then on Fast Fridays, I do a hedgehog related thing, which typically involves playing a Sonic game that I most likely am going to be terrible at. And then we have that obnoxious, not rodent Raccoon. He takes over. He is contractually obligated to take control of my stream on Raccoon Tunes days, and he does what he does, and hopefully doesn't make too much of a mess of things. So that's that's 3 times a week, Devon o'clock, 7 o'clock Eastern time, and you can check out our streams if you would like.
And you should please do. I will have a link in the description to his channel. And you're Devon O'Clock on Twitter as well. I'm sorry, on X.
Let's not give him the satisfaction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it'll be Schmoopy Boopy in August or something. I don't know. As for me, I mean, if those of you, I guess, if you're primarily Tome fans, I've got a whole lot of other cool stuff happening on my channel at the moment. Tome is taking a little bit of a breather for the time being. I have a couple other things with it that I might have time to play around with, little quick things to throw in there. But and go check out the video game. It's still doing well, and people have been checking it out every month, which I appreciate. If you want to see another universe of these characters that I think is, in my opinion, the strongest iteration of any of these guys. Not that I don't love the past ones. And I have been, speaking of that, also been putting up the archives of the old TV Tome Adventures episodes on my channel, unmonetized, just for people to see. I don't necessarily recommend watching those, but
do.
Yeah, but they're up. They're amusing. If you want to see the humble beginnings of where some of these characters came from, you can if you want. All right. Well, that's gonna end things here. Matt, thank you again for taking the time. I know you're a very, very busy bee, so I appreciate you being
No,
here
I'm
with
not.
me.
I'm never doing anything of value.
No. Oh, stop that. And everybody check out patreon.com/Kerbifer if you would like to potentially recommend Kirblog topics like this in the future, and also maybe get a free drawing of your choice once a month. And I may even have some other stuff regarding that coming up in the future, as I'm kind of in the midst of doing some of these new projects and stuff. So keep an eye out. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll catch you all on the next one. We'll see you on the battle grid. Bye-bye.
But that's my line.